Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Everybody should, yeah. That would be the smart move. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, May 8th meeting of the Fitch-Rona EMS District. Roll call, please.
Sure, Michelle is not here, so I will take care of that. And we have James Roberts.
Here.
And Alder Nafadari is excused. She is our new alder for the city of Fitchburg. Jake Lepper.
Here.
Derek Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Lytle.
Here.
Stephen Fusco.
Here.
Dave Lonsdorf.
Here.
Deb Paul.
Here.
Sue Lugenbuehl. I see her up there. Sue, got a thumbs up. I am here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Deputy Chief Dostalik is in San Francisco. Deputy Chief Anders.
Here.
Right. And then we have a guest this evening. So we do have a quorum. I don't know if you want new people to introduce themselves.
Yeah, thanks. We have several new people tonight that we maybe just everybody introduce themselves. So if we want to just start down with Patrick, just to introduce yourself and what connects you to the commission here.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Lytle. I'm the elected official representative from the city of Verona and familiar face to some of you. I had a shortened term last year when we had some changes at the Verona City Council level, but excited to be back and know this is a great group and appreciate all the things you all do for the community. Welcome.
I'm Debbie Paul. I'm from the town of Verona, one of the board supervisors, and on this commission by the town board.
I am Deputy Chief Devin Anders, new to Fitch-Rona EMS. Very excited to be here and reintroduce myself and continue the great district.
My name's Jake Lepper. I'm newly appointed for the city of Fitchburg as one of the community representatives. I also have some volunteer EMS experience.
I'm Derek Johnson. I'm the citizen appointee from the city of Verona, and I've been on commission for a few years and in this role for a little over a year.
Okay. I'm James Roberts, citizen representative for the city of Fitchburg.
I'm Stephen Fusco. I am a citizen appointee for the city of Verona, and I've been on the commission since November, so I'm no longer the newest member. That's kind of nice.
David Lonsdorf, as Town of Verona Board Supervisor. This is my start of my 5th year on the commission. So.
Sue?
Sue Lugenbuehl. I am the citizen position for Town of Verona.
Thank you. Any public comment this evening?
No public comment.
And that we're aware of. So we're going to move on to Presentation of the 2024 audit from Johnson Block, Brett Hoffmeister.
Patrick, is there anything you wanted to start off with, or do you just want me to jump in?
I don't think so.
Alrighty. My name is Brett Hoffmeister. I'm from Johnson Block and Company. Thank you for having me tonight. And I'm going to talk about the financial statements for 2024. So just a little background since there's some new faces. So with Fitch-Rona, we typically do a rotation. We'll do an audit every third year. And in the off years, we do, it's called a review. So it's a little less in scope than an audit, but we still review the financial statements, make sure, provide some assurance for the numbers. So this year was a full audit. So we'll be going through that. And to kind of help with that, I've prepared a presentation rather than going through the full audit. And actually, Patrick, if you could go back up to the first page, sorry. But so this first page here just kind of summarizes the content, what you see when you're looking at an audit report. So the first thing you would see is it's a couple pages long, our opinion on the financial statements. And so we issued the report already a couple weeks ago. Our opinion was unmodified, so that's what you would want to see when you're looking at a set of audited financial statements. It means the balances are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's no missing information, no material adjustments that aren't made. So that's the highest level of assurance we can give in an audit. It's a clean opinion is another way you commonly hear that. The opinion letter covers the government-wide financial statements, the fund statements, which is what this presentation is based off of. The fund statements are what you kind of do your budgeting off of, how you look at things month to month. The government-wide financial statements are a different accounting basis, so they look a little different, but they're also included. There's a set of notes to the financial statements and then some required supplementary information, budget to actual information, information about your benefit plans through the state, that type of thing. When we do an audit, one thing that we do that we don't do in a review is issue some communication letters. So these letters include an audit matters requiring communication with the governing body. That's just some more information about, background about the audit, what we would do, kind of boilerplate letter, nothing really significant in that letter for 2024. And then we also look at internal controls over financial reporting as part of an audit. That's something we don't do in a review. We look at that type of thing, and if we have anything we note as a finding, we report it in that communication letter, the internal control communication letter. We did have one finding for material audit adjustments, which is not an uncommon finding in a smaller EMS district, small municipality, governments, nonprofits. That's kind of our niche, is smaller organizations. We see that a lot. Essentially what that is we're providing some assistance through the audit in adjusting year-end numbers to get those balances into accordance with GAAP. So, your month-to-month, your day-to-day reporting is a lot more cash basis, and we're helping with those year-end adjustments. A consequence of that is we're not part of the entity's internal controls, so when we're the ones kind of helping with that, it typically leads to a finding such as this. It's common in a lot of my clients, and it kind of comes down to a resource allocation. Small governments, you're more putting your money towards the service that you're providing rather than the administrative roles. Or hiring a CPA that would come in and do those adjustments at the end of the year. So not uncommon, like I said, and one that I think we have had in there the past couple of audits. Looking at the financials themselves, so the next couple pages that I'm going to go through provide some high-level information about what the financials look like at the end of the year. So this first section here is just a summary balance sheet. We've got your assets on top, followed by the liabilities, deferred inflows, and fund balances. Total assets for the year were about $2.8 million. That was mostly made up of cash and accounts receivable. The receivable balance of about $860,000 is presented net of an allowance for bad debts. So with a EMS district, you're making runs, you're charging run fees to those patients. That allowance it's a recognition that you're not going to collect all those fees. Very common in an EMS district to have that. The liabilities, deferred inflows. So liabilities are going to be, things that were incurred before the end of the year that are paid subsequent to year end. Most of those are accrued liabilities of about $150,000. That's primarily payroll related. Payroll that was earned before the end of the year, paid after, earned in December, paid in January. Things like WRS accruals, just regular payroll, that type of thing. Pretty common. Payroll has been increasing the last three to 5 years, so those accruals kind of keep creeping up. And then the larger item is the unavailable run revenue, over $520,000. This is a quirk of governmental accounting and kind of with your fund financial basis. So what that is, when you do provide services, provide runs in 2024, you've got receivables at the end of the year. In governmental accounting, if you don't collect that cash, that money within 2 months, most of the time within 2 months of year end, you can't show that as revenue on the current year financial statements. So that gets deferred until the next period when it's presumably collected. That deferred or that unavailable run revenue has been high the last couple of years. That it's not typically been this high for Fitch-Rona. That just kind of comes back to billing company issues. 2023 had significant issues, which is, not really in anyone's control. It improved somewhat in 2024, but I think it's been a transition to a new billing company, so that's caused, some delays. It did get better. Run revenues did come in better for the year, but that deferral is still high from historically where it's been. Fund balance at the end of the year was in good shape. It had about $2.1 million. I'll go into that detail a little bit more, but one thing to point out is the unassigned fund balance was about $1.7 million at the end of the year. One thing that we look at is what is that as a percentage of your budget? Because that unassigned fund balance is really what's available for spending if needed. Things come up, you've got emergency, something happens to a vehicle, something, you have to replace equipment unexpectedly that's not in your budget. You're usually having to dip into fund balance there. So that unassigned fund balance is kind of a gauge just to look at what your general fund's health is. It's about 40% of a year's budget, which is very healthy. We typically recommend that be 3 to 4 months of expenses, somewhere between 15 to 25%. So 40% of a year's budget is a healthy place to be. And looking at the bottom, we can kind of see why that increased so much. We've just got a summary budget to actual. So revenues and expenses were budgeted just right around $4 million for the year. Expenditures came in just under budget, but pretty much in line with expectations. Your revenues were quite a bit higher. Primarily there, your run fees just came in better than expected. Cash collections improved, which that's going to have a direct correlation on your revenues for the year. And then, other things you had, interest income has been up pretty much everywhere, but that's not really something you can rely on year to year. So most places budget that pretty conservatively, which is what I would, say you want to continue doing. And then there were just some grants and other donations that came into that, weren't part of the initial budget. So overall, you had an increase of about $750,000 for the year. The next page just shows a little more detail about how your fund balance is broken down. It can be broken into 5 different categories. The Fitch-Rona has currently balances in 4. The non-spendable balances are about $193,000. So that is items that are in a non-spendable form. So you can't use that money to liquidate another liability, pay payroll, that type of thing. It's essentially things that you've already kind of used them, but they haven't been expensed yet. So you've got inventory for medical supplies that are in your stations and ambulances, and then you've got prepaid items, so things you've paid for that are going to be used next year. The restricted balances have some sort of outside legal restriction on them, typically by grants. That's about $33,000. And then the assigned fund balances are amounts that internally you've just kind of set aside for specific things. The largest one has typically been that employee benefits line. When somebody retires, they have sick leave conversions, so there's money set aside to help offset those costs when those happen. And then the remainder is unassigned. The rest of this presentation is just some historical charts, kind of 5-year histories. I wasn't going to go through anything in detail just because I'm sure you've got other things in the agenda to get through. Overall, the audit went pretty much as expected. There's, been a little bit of back and forth with the billing company the last couple of years just to make sure we're getting the right reports. One thing that I will note when you look at some of these, some of the revenue numbers, I think net are going to be pretty typical, but if you look at like your gross run fees versus your net run fees, that's going to look a little different from historical numbers because they have a little different reporting than Three Rivers used to. So some of that stuff will look a little odd, but it's nothing, when you look at the net numbers, it's nothing really out of the ordinary there. But I will, if there are any questions on anything in this, anything in the actual audit itself, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, I think things went pretty well this year. So no real other issues for me to go over.
Any questions?
I will just mention the commission members, you did get a complete copy. This is I like to say this is the version of that I understand. It's the 9 pages right here. You got the whole 49-page copy that should have gotten emailed to you with all those statements as well. That was also, as you go back to your municipalities, that was also sent to the finance directors and the city administrators from all 3 municipalities. So they also did get the copy of the full audit.
Mr. Lytle?
So I apologize if I'm still coming up to speed. The revenue graph that showed an actual dip in 2023 for net run revenue, and then a fairly significant, is that more related to the timing of some of the delayed collections that came in than necessarily some kind of major shift or reduction in 2023 to 2024?
It's not even kind of, it is. Absolutely. So we transitioned from Three Rivers officially sort of kind of October 1st of 2023. So actually nothing got billed from October to November 1st of 2023. And then there was a pretty significant lapse before they were truly up and running and getting calls out the door. So it was almost 3 months of the tail end of 2023 that almost nothing got billed. So that really reflects that part of why the reserve went up, or those unassigned fund balances went up in 2024, because there was almost 3 months worth of run revenue that normally would have gone into 2023 that got dumped into 2024. Kind of in that one really big chunk. So yeah, that is a direct correlation to switching billing companies.
And the switch wasn't anything, so what happened was this company, EMSMC, bought up pretty much the main 3 billing companies that cover Wisconsin. LifeQuest, Three Rivers, and the other one always escapes me. Yeah. Three Rivers was a unique case. They transitioned earlier because their owner passed away unexpectedly. So they didn't really have a choice. They had to go. Everybody else transitioned during 2024. Transitions were still rocky, I think, but overall they were smoother. I don't think they had a huge gap like Three Rivers customers did. But yeah, it was Patrick's right on.
So that if we were to look at those run revenues from a gross or from an accrual base standpoint, we would have seen a much smoother increase from 2022 into 2023 and on to 2024?
I think the answer would have been yes.
And I may have stated that incorrectly, but
If we were looking at things full accrual, no. Because the collection cycle was kind of messed up as well, your allowances would have been higher, so there probably still would have been a dip. But if these were full accrual statements, yeah, the revenue likely would have been smoother. I'd have to look back and see what it actually did, but
yeah, there was a pretty significant hiccup as well. Moving, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When we consider things going to the collection agency, we consider them non-collectible because largely they're non-collectible. But there was also a transition from Three Rivers to EMSMC from Stark here, which was our collection agency, to I think it's called Lifeline Collections, which is a subsidiary of EMSMC, right? The one-stop shop. I would venture to say it was almost 6 months, potentially about a year, before anything actually got cleared up and sent to collections. So that was another accounting billing for that huge increase in. It was a really rough transition to the new billing company all around, to the point where a lot of stuff, and then kind of historically retro black when EMSMC, our current billing company, did acquire Three Rivers and bought Three Rivers. So Three Rivers, it doesn't exist, but all their employees still exist. They just work for for EMSMC now. So we still actually have that good relationship. And you'll see on my chief's report that we still actually have stuff at Three Rivers as far as an aging report, which seems kind of crazy. It's been almost 18 months since we left them, but there's still stuff. Patient, eventually it's supposed to be a sunset. Every other billing company truly had a real sunset and absorbed everything. For whatever reason, Three Rivers is supposed to be still just a unique setup. And there's still, you can still see things that are 30, 60, 90 days out as they get billed. And once they get a new payer, that billing cycle starts all over again to day zero. So they still actually have some accounts at Three Rivers, at EMSMC, right? However that tier works. But as Brett had said, with the passing away of Brad, he was our primary account holder. And then after they got in to find out, kind of digging in and finding out what our accounts were still out there was a lot of stuff that was still out there. So there was a lot of cleanup work that had to be done. If you remember from a couple months ago when we had a significant number of patient and insurance company refunds, that though they were tagged in there to be refunded, that refund comes from us, not the billing company, and it just never got sent because of all of the reasons just stated before, to the tune of like $50,000 in overdue patient run income or run refunds, patients and insurance companies. So that's all still playing out kind of in the audit here of that transition.
Thank you.
On March 10th, I got an email from someone that works with you, Claire Anderson?
Halverson.
Halverson, yeah. That I found kind of unsettling, and I actually emailed her back and said, like, is there a problem or something? Did everyone on the commission get the same email asking us? It was 11 questions about, are we aware of any fraud that's going on, and have we seen any cybersecurity incidents and all this kind of stuff? Was that just sent to me or everybody?
I'd have to check and see. It's usually sent to 1 to 2 board members. It's a standard.
Not get it.
What?
A standard thing that we do. That we're required to do by auditing standards is to reach out to a member of the board to ask. They're all standard inquiries. Is there anything you've seen that we should know about? Is essentially what it's asking. So we don't usually send it to the entire board, but it is something we're required to do, and that we do every audit. And for Fitch-Rona, since you don't do an audit every year, we don't send them every year. So for a review, we typically ask similar questions to like Patrick and Michelle, but we aren't required to do the same level of digging in a review. So for Fitch-Rona, since we don't do an audit every year, we're not doing all the same procedures every year.
All right. I mean, the thing I found concerning about it is the implication is that I am working in the same workplace as the people that are keeping track of our accounting and our books, when in fact I'm not. Once a month I come here and I see Patrick. Otherwise, I don't see him again until a month from now. I don't ever go on the ambulance. I don't ever see any of the ambulance crew. Michelle Wachter communicates with me by email occasionally, but unless she's sitting there, I don't see her either. And so there's no way I would have any control over the actions that they're taking. But the question's kind of implied that, like, maybe I am or something. Maybe I work at the desk next to them or something like that.
So the questions that we ask are required by our audit.
I understand that, yeah.
Right. And so the board is charged with governance of the organization. So and that's the logic that we're required to reach out to members of the board in an audit or the oversight committee, whatever that may be, to ask these standard questions.
I'll try to remember in 3 years to give at least everybody a heads up that the list of questions you got is the list of questions I get.
Yeah.
And Mike, it just sounds like it's a random. I honestly didn't sell you out to like. Yeah,
no, I'm not feeling personally persecuted. I just feel like, as members of the commission, we're essentially never working with the people that are actually doing the work. We just come once a month to a meeting and we receive documents that we review. I wonder about the level of responsibility that we have over, the $4 million or whatever that's in the budget, when in fact we never see any of it actually being spent or used. I mean, how would I have much control over that?
Well, you approve the financial reports at these meetings, correct?
Yeah,
you approve the budget.
Yeah, I look at them and say, yeah, that looks fine to me, but I have no idea whether anybody's actually, acting fairly or, legally and stuff like that.
I could say we ask these questions of members at the various levels of the organization, at the governance level, at the management level, at the employee level. So that's what we're required to do by auditing standards.
All right. Well, I won't pursue it anymore. It just, there's sort of this illusion that we're somehow supervising and controlling what goes on here, and we're only doing it by hearsay, rather than direct experience. We don't all work together and stuff. So it's a very loose control.
I understand.
In your experience, do you see understand our financial governance, like how we do things. Do you see much different with other EMS commissions, or is it similar?
It depends on the size of the EMS commission. Larger ones, I would say Fitch-Rona falls somewhere in the middle, are going to have more, more positions at a management level. You have a chief, you have a couple deputy chiefs, you have some other internal administrative staff. Other ones I work with have a chief and some lieutenants who aren't really as involved in the financial reporting, and then they have an accountant or somebody internally who does their bookkeeping. So it's similar to what I've seen elsewhere. I would say that.
Thank you. Any other questions, Court?
I just had a question with some of these accounts receivable that got out pretty late. Is there a better way to accrue those or put those in so that we know that we're getting some of that bad debt, or is it pretty much written off, but then for some reason, which I see in some businesses, people try to get that bad debt off their name and they will pay it. I mean, how is that in the audit? I don't know if that's something you would have control over. Is that something that the accounts receivable person would put into an account?
So as far as actually writing it off and taking it off of your books entirely, that's really the billing, comes down to the billing company and how they process those transactions. The allowance is based off of what they're saying, is still hasn't been sent to collections and hasn't been removed from the accounts yet. So that they report, here's the receivable balance, then an estimate is developed. Typically, I think the estimate is kind of based on historic collections, your percentage of receivables that have been collected. So that is kind of estimating this is what we think isn't going to be collected. And then from there, right, if it's written off, it comes off your receivables. If somebody does happen to pay it after the fact, then it becomes revenue again in the year it's collected.
Other questions? Other questions? So it's thinking about our financial governance now. So see if I got this right. We approve a budget. The commission approves a budget. Can help me make sure I got this right. Monthly, you have the report against budget, right? It's what we spend against budget, and then there's a check run. So if I really had a lot of time on my hands, I could use a calculator. Everything in the check run is somewhere in the spreadsheet, right? Is somewhere in the budget against actual.
Yes.
Because if the money was spent, it shows up in the check run.
Correct. I think you're I think you're correct. Yeah, not a dollar leaves this district without you seeing it on that check report.
And then one other thing, I was reading that, maybe it was the IGA, but what dollar amount requires 2 signatures on a check?
So we have a policy that says anything over $5,000 requires 2 signatures, with the exception of, I want to say 4 items that are written in policy, and that's to group health, which is every month our health insurance, to EMSMC, which is the billing company. Honestly, there's 4. I think it's property and liability. That I can send that out again. It's 4 or 5 of them that are written in there that are every month are over $5,000, and it's all benefits. It's those things.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the 2024 audit? Thank you for your time this evening. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Next up is review and approval of the meeting minutes from March 13th. For the new commissioners, members of the commission, that's everything in here was handed out in the pre-read so review and approval of the meeting minutes from March 13th. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Chief's report.
Thanks. So I have it displayed there. You did get it sent out to you. So as you can see, we are still on track for a pretty significant increase in just this year alone as well. Was kind of hoping that was going to level off after influenza A and B and COVID and everything else ran rampant, but it has not. So yeah, I have my fingers crossed that it will still level off. That last year we hit our over 5,000 calls last year. If we look at an 18% on top of that, but we're on track we will actually hit over 6,000 calls this year. By the end of this year. So it's been pretty busy. So as I try to recognize our staff for keeping pretty busy, and it's been some pretty sick patients and some pretty high acuity calls. Other information you see, there's the stuff I usually report, pretty common. I will point out the car 15, car 17, that's the 2 response cars. Now that we have Devin on board, he loves to hop in that car when he's out and about doing training and go help people out. So that's gone up significantly, I think, to the appreciation of our staff and especially our citizens when we can get there much quicker when ambulances are coming from farther away. Things we've helped out with the community are listed there. Otherwise, the usual stuff that we see there, as I bring up, falls, still the number 1 cause of calls. As I mentioned, one of the challenges of especially with this second Thursday being the 8th, as the first being the Thursday. So I did not get all the aging reports until actually this morning was the last time my aging report came. So you'll see that aging report in there is from last month. I will get that updated and send that current aging report to you here next week. Otherwise, there's the cash that we have sitting on hands. Pretty. You can see the numbers there. One thing I will point out when we get down to the FAP funds, I'll actually talk about that when I'm done with the Chief's report here. That's a pretty significant increase than we have ever seen before. And then I think I added it in there last month that Deputy Chief Dostalik talked about the Falls Grant stuff. So we've had actually a couple expenditures in there to improve some home safety for some falls prevention for some citizens. Our May milestones: Sarah Emhoff, 23 years as a full-timer, Ryan Dockery, 18 years as a full-timer, and then Andrew, who's been with us for 12 years, and I think 10 of those have been as a full-timer. A couple of updates for us, still working on the Medicaid supplement program. It's got a couple of different acronyms. The end of June and July, that should actually been plugging through that with some help with Michelle. What's that supposed to do is actually make up, if I'm remembering right, it's per year. We have to do, it's been in the process for about 5 years now, but they're actually finally getting the application process in, but it'll be retroactive to 2023 and 2024. So I have to go back to those numbers, fill out those spreadsheets, which are fairly complicated. But for patients who are truly state Medicaid, so that's not third-party Medicaid, but straight Medicaid that we provided transportation to, there's actually an increase in funding from what they currently pay for about 80% of the gap. Off the top of my head, right, an average run is about $1,500 for us. Medicaid, or the medical assistance, pays about a flat $110 of that $1,500 fee. The rest is written off. So this program, new to Wisconsin, it's out in the rest of the country, is designed to actually help fund some of that gap to the tune of about 80% of that gap. It's just going to a lot of work on the front end to make that happen. So working on that. I'll circle back to the FAP funding. Did submit a grant to Epic to replace our bikes. They actually bought our bikes in 2012, the bikes that we currently have, so we've been using since then. So put in an application to upgrade this to some e-bikes. And then Jeff, as in part of his role for kind of our personnel and HR person, is kind of our intern applicant person. He's been gone on a Panamanian cruise for the last 2.5 weeks. He did make land today. I got an email from him, so guess he is coming back. But so all of the applications for our next 2-year internship program went to him, and so we'll be working through that process. And then I always love to talk about the shout outs. These actually came from our crews to Battalion Chief Hendrickson, Lieutenant Heredia, and the 2 firefighters, Gummer and Barrow from Verona. The EMS crew that we had working that day just said they had a lot of sick, very, very sick patients. And then that fire crew was very, very, very helpful to them. And then it was a shout out to the Fitchburg fire crew for taking a patient's groceries back to their house for them after we ended up transporting that patient after an accident. So love to recognize the partners that we work with as well. And then Ross, one of his peers, actually just said they were very impressed with some compassion he showed to sounds like how they explained it was a series of very low acuity patients who really just needed a little bit of help getting back into bed or some other care, and did a phenomenal job after multiple calls of those, which can tend to be very frustrating after a while. Said he did a really good job. So I always like to give him a shout out by one of his peers as well.
Any questions for the chief regarding the chief's report?
I just had a quick question. Just curious, out of the complaints, what sort of things fall into like unknown problem, that category? Is it just like they're not good at explaining their symptoms, or it's vague, or I just want a better idea of that bucket?
Yeah, it's kind of everything else. Yeah, it kind of it's unknown problem, and sick person is kind of the I mean, I can go on and tell you all the experiences I've had of the I've had somebody call who their oxygen tubing got wrapped around their wheelchair wheel and they couldn't get it undone. Sleeping at the bus stop because it's a beautiful summer day and I'm just going to wait for the bus to come. And so somebody says, oh my God, somebody's dead at the bus stop. That's kind of, we don't really know what's going on. So we're just going to send you while we try to figure out what's going on. But then that code, that initial, and that's why I report it, right, always probably good to know, is like it's 70% of dispatch codes. That's not necessarily what it ultimately ended up being, because those dispatch codes rarely ever change. It's just that initial, we're not really sure what's going on, go figure it out. We get more information, but the code itself doesn't usually change.
All right, thanks. I was just curious because I thought, well, they could probably all fall into sick person.
Those are the unknown problem sick person, or kind of like my tooth hurts. That's sick person. So yeah, just everything. Yeah.
Any other questions for the chief?
Would that include mental health problems, like when someone's acting crazy? Is that a number 6 or?
There is actually a code. There is actually a code for behavioral health. So that does get its own, providing it's kind of determined that at the time that the code is created, that is the problem. It can get created as a behavioral or psychological concern. So it wouldn't get batched in there unless right at the time it goes out, they're not really sure what's going on. But that does get separated out. Okay. I said it's truly the tooth pain, catheter leaking, right? Got any other ones to throw out there, Devin?
I had one question on the financial report. I see, when our receivables get over 120 to 180 days, we're at a goal of 8% and a goal at 180 at 3%. Is there anything? The actual current percentages is much higher. Is there anything we can do or things that we can try and figure out to help from the financial standpoint to work through those as a commission? I guess I see these reports every time, but I don't hear any solutions or any things to work through it. I'd like to know if there's something we can help or do with that. Or
this is still very much part of the struggle of the transition to the current billing company. After Claire was the auditor that worked with Brett. So a good conversation with her, and not that it's an excuse, but the problems we're seeing with the billing company, everybody is seeing with this billing company. And as he said, they bought up every billing company in the state of Wisconsin. So it's not like we don't have any other options. We don't have any other local options. But it's something I actively work in. So based on the suggestion of our auditors, I go through and had kind of talked with Michelle and have kind of just done a hip pocket internal audit, trying to do 25 random calls every month and track them to see how soon after we write our report does it get imported into their system. Once it gets imported into their system, how soon a bill is generated, and then look at the follow-up with that. And even just tackling 20 calls of 450 calls a month really it's brought into light of I think when I first came out 2 months before, I only got through 5 calls and came up with some pretty significant issues. Our sales rep, customer service executive or whatever her title is, she's been very responsive, but it's running across things that are sitting on their side for review, but that sat there for 3 months. Why is it sitting there for 3 months? So it's bringing a lot of stuff, questions. They did come. The EMSMC brought their panel of essentially Wisconsin people, I want to say a month and a half ago. We actually did host the meeting in Verona. All of us brought to them some significant concerns. They assured us, some of them they knew, that they dropped the ball on some staffing things, some procedure things. They're assuring us they're working on this. So I don't have a good answer. I will absolutely keep that in mind of this is something I'm trying to be very aggressive with. Like once they get to be that old, it becomes significantly more challenging for them to be collectible.
Right, that was my concern. The only other thing, and like you said, this is the bigger company, it's the one out there, but is it a contract with them that there could be something written into a future contract that says if you don't collect, you're going to be responsible for 20, I don't know if it can work out, but sometimes you can work in some negotiations that penalize them for not getting these things done in a timely manner. I wasn't sure if that's something that's available.
It's something we could talk about. At the end of the day, they get their money based on what they collect for us. So if they don't collect for us, they also don't get paid. Which one would think. The more they collect for us, the more they're going to get paid. So I would think you'd want to be collecting it, and I think I don't even know that it's systems thing. There's probably a couple little systems hiccups in there. I think large of it has been they were understaffed. They took off an entire 3 states and didn't grow significantly enough. There were some infrastructure issues. I think they're aware of what they dropped the ball on, and unfortunately, it's still the calls that are taking those hits are the ones that are from 6 months ago.
So you touched on this when you gave your report with the City of Verona, the Medicaid supplement. So back of the envelope here, we're essentially talking about $1,000 swing between the current pay rate and what our typical call charge is, 80% of that difference. And feel free to correct me in your response, but so of roughly 5,000 calls in 2024, do you have any guess as to what the number of those were that fell under that very low reimbursement rate of 110?
It would be a guess, but I can probably, if Devin makes a note of it, I will. I can actually probably fairly easily figure that out. Right, part of the, as we shared with the new billing company when they came and did the presentation for us, I said on the good side and the bad side, they've got some phenomenal customer interfacing software that we never had before that shows us real-time billing. I can now go into find a patient, find out the current status, where it's at, which we've never been able to do that before. So that's great for me. Unfortunately for them, I can go into every patient now and find out exactly where things are, where they've been sitting and how long they've been sitting there. So we're able to follow up on those. But they also then have a phenomenal reporting thing, again, real time, day to day, as things come out. So I should be able to dig fairly deep and find out what percentage of patients. Some of that as well, I don't know that I can drill down as far as, because there are other insurance companies, and I don't know that I'm using the right words, that essentially manage Medicaid, like Badger Care, or like I know Dean has Dean Badger Care equivalent. Those calls don't count. It is truly only calls that went straight through the Badger Care Medical Assistance Program. So I don't know if I can dig down that deep, but I should have a pretty good number and be able to figure out what that should look like. As I had kind of mentioned to you and a couple other people as I talked about this, at least on the front end of this, right, it's a reimbursement program. It's not a move forward, pay higher program. If the program, I'm assuming the program will continue, we'll have to do this every year. And it's a pretty significant deep dive into, right, it's pretty restrictive. But this first year is going to be the biggest challenge of retroactively going back 2 years in a fairly short period of time. So I'll do the 2023 and 2024. If it turns out it ends up being a pretty low number and not a really great return on my investment of time, I don't know that we'll continue to do it. But I can be able to find out. I can try to do a best guess.
So what you're saying is that just because a call is generated and their only insurance is Medicaid, that doesn't mean every single one of them, we only collect the $110. That represents the floor of what we would expect to receive for run revenue for that call.
I think the answer is yes. I think is what you're asking. Yeah.
So there's any number of actual reimbursements between the 110
they will
and the 1,500?
They will all meet that. They will all be the same reimbursement cost. For whatever reason, it's just managed by a different insurance company. But they will all pay that flat $110.93. Yeah, regardless of who paid it, but for whatever reason, it won't go. They're only paying the ones that went through the state, not through those other managed cares.
I mean, I'm sure it's not 1,000 calls a year, but if 500 calls a year where we're missing out on, when we have the opportunity for an extra $1,000 of revenue, I mean, that's a not insignificant amount of money, but I'm not sure if I'm capturing like all the hoops you all have to go through and, the reality of whether there's a ceiling on that as well.
Yeah, And that got asked, and they had a couple of webinars when they finally rolled this out to everybody across the state, and we all had those very same questions of like, what can I expect to get back? And they're like, well, it's all very, very agency specific, and other states have done this. They said there are agencies that get back a significant portion of money, and I don't want to say we have a significant population of medical assistance patients, but we have whatever your interpretation of significant is, but it's a sizable amount of patients who are Medicaid patients. So it's absolutely worth the time to see what we can get. And then kind of adjust. I've already talked with Michelle about the numbers, how I'm going to have to divide out the numbers. The easiest example is the only what they try to do is we have to report the entire cost of running an ambulance service, and then how is that divided into hours and patients and things. So to report that final cost, but it's only the cost of running a transporting ambulance. So for both of our SUVs, I have to pull out every dollar that we spent on either one of those cars on fuel and maintenance cost and pull those out because they didn't relate directly to ambulance transports. Anytime we do a special event, I have to figure out what that cost is because it didn't go directly to relating to right, as though as much as I can save $4.1 million, I have to pull all the costs out that didn't go to directly supporting an ambulance service, and that's the number I have to report. Then that's the number they take and say, okay, let's figure out how much money we're going to give you. So it's daunting. But if we can change kind of how we're reporting things either in QuickBooks or proactively pull those things out as we pay them, to do this in the future shouldn't be as difficult.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for the chief regarding his report? Update on the intergovernmental agreement?
Sure. I don't think I have it on there as well. I will do one quick thing before the intergovernmental agreement. Yeah. Planting the thought of something that we'll need to bring up in the next month or two. As Brett had talked about, the reserve funding. So the intergovernmental agreement I had to print it off and read it. So excess revenue. So based on increased run volume, increased run incomes, and kind of various other factors along the way, we were at 24%, as you saw in the audit there last year for our reserve. This year, for a handful of those reasons, that big dump from run revenue, just the increase of special events we've been doing, the funds that the municipalities have been putting into our reserve funding. So our reserve funding is at 40%, as you saw in his report there. So the intergovernmental agreement says we will maintain a reserve funding between 15 and 25%. So our reserve funding is 15% over where it should be, which my simple math, based on what Brett presented here, is about $600,000. So based on the intergovernmental agreement, excess revenues revert to an undesignated, unreserved fund balance as directed by the EMS Commission, unless otherwise directed by the municipalities at the annual meeting or special meeting. So now that I have the real numbers and that you have seen the audit, I will share that information with the finance directors and the city administrators and the mayors of the 3 municipalities. But there should be some guidance then coming from the commission, coming from your municipal members about what exactly we should be doing with that $600,000, because it's really not just supposed to sit there in an unassigned balance. So options being, and I will again share this with the leaders of the 3 municipalities, but options are being, as we talk about Brent had talked about our post-retirement healthcare fund, which is sitting, I think, it's that WISC fund. So it's sitting at roughly $286,000 over the next probably 5 years. I'm probably going to see 5 to 6 of our employees retiring, each one of them taking a big chunk of that post-retirement healthcare fund with them. So that fund would actually be a phenomenal thing to actually put in there to help either increase or sustain that post-retirement healthcare fund, which is what you see the WISC account. Other options can be to actually offset any future increases in the operational budget, which my understanding is most municipalities don't want to do, because then that kind of just puts you in a structural deficit for any future growth. But it is an option. Other options is actually to put those in assigned vehicle fund balances to offset any future CIP increases. That's an option. We used to have that ambulance, and I noted it on there, he had it in the audit report, that $9,000 went out of there about 3 years ago, the last 2 times we bought an ambulance. So we got to find out how that's still stuck in the books there somewhere. But there's the potential to take that in there and reduce CIP funding for the municipalities with those funds. Those are kind of the big 3 things out there. Or it can sit out there as well, and we can just kind of put it into if it stays in there, Michelle and I usually work with Oak Bank or our partners at WISC to find out. We can open up another. WISC is an investment account that they work with municipalities. They tend to have a little bit better return than CDs do. Currently, we're getting some pretty good rates on our CDs, but we could open up another WISC account as well. I think we can have up to 2 of them, so that could sit there and earn interest back into our operating budget. Something to, again, I will share with the municipal leaders, but something for you to ponder and connect or talk amongst yourselves to provide me with some direction on what we should do with those unassigned funds.
Which we'll do next month. Or next week.
Which we'll talk about next meeting. Yeah, with some proposals. Again, I'll largely do some of the footwork for you, but they may be reaching out to you to help you, because ultimately you act on their guidance. The other part of that is the FAP funding that I mentioned. So FAP, and if you didn't grab a handout, I did post it up onto the packet on the website, but I forgot to mail it out with the original packet you got. So there is one there on the table if you didn't grab one. I've talked about FAP forever. It's through the state of Wisconsin. It's a funding assistance program. It's money we get through the state to help with. There's 2 little pots that it comes with designated. One is support and improvements, and the other one is training. Those are also restricted funds based on that little packet that I either emailed or you saw there. Historically, it's been $8,000 to $9,000-ish. There's a formula the state determines what each EMS service who applies for it gets it. Governor Evers, about 2 years ago, right, with support of the legislature, recognized the underfunding of EMS in the state of Wisconsin, put some significant amount of funds into the FAP program. So normally what we get, that's about $8,000 to $9,000 this year, turned into about $172,000. So that's why you see that FAP funding changing from a previous year. Normally it's a couple $1,000s, and there was a couple extra spots before the comma this time. Those are restricted funds. So I kind of have put out to the staff. I've talked with Devin and Jeff as well about kind of what some of our needs and wants are. That's why I wanted to make sure I share that piece of paper with you, because we cannot use them for people. You cannot use them for positions. And it is money from the state is designed to supplement a budget. It cannot be a budget item. So we can't just say, let's use that money for the $100,000 we spend on all of our medical supplies and save our municipalities from buying medical supplies and Band-Aids. Can't do that. State says you can't do that. It says you can to some extent, but it can purchase vehicles, equipment, training supplies. One of the things we've been talking amongst with staff as well, it actually will help. It can fund health and wellness programs for staff. So that's one of the things that working with the union on, as well as what are some options there. So we've got some ideas. I will share some of those things with you as well. We'll kind of put a formal thing together and then share that with you, kind of bring it up to some discussion next month. I mean, because you can also bank it. There's nothing that says you have to spend it. Every year we do have to report what we did or did not spend on it before you get to apply for another year's. You have to reply receipts and audits and everything as well. but you don't have to spend it. There's a lot of smaller services that bank that money every year, and when they finally get enough, they buy an ambulance with it, which is an option for us as well. So I just wanted to explain those two kind of big chunks of money that are sitting out there that we need to kind of earmark for something, and we'll probably put those into a couple of resolutions in June or July at your direction. If you have any other questions or want to talk about that, we can talk about it. That it's not on an agenda tonight as an actionable item. I really just wanted to make sure that you knew of those funds, and then June or July, probably do an actionable item kind of on what to do with some of those funds. Or if you got any questions or want to talk about it offline, let me know. That's all I got.
I just have a quick question about that. This is money provided by the state to purchase all these items that we would normally budget for, because when we need them, we have to purchase them. But we can't use the money in place of our budget. So it's sort of, that's confusing to me. It's sort of like you can buy stuff with it that you would normally buy with your budget, but it can't be instead of budgeting for it. So you just have extra of them or something, like 6 laryngoscopes instead of 3, or?
Yes-ish.
Yeah.
So again, it's designed for bigger services, larger services. You know, part of it, you could say something like, we purchase our cardiac monitor. When we buy a new ambulance, I put the 5 big things in it, right? So when we get a new ambulance, I get a new cardiac monitor, and we trade the old one in. So in theory, right, we have a plan to replace it, and we should have a plan to replace it. I mean, you really could say we are only going to replace our cardiac monitors when you have enough FAP funding to replace the cardiac monitor. I mean, the answer is yes, but no.
You don't want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the intent. The intent, I think, of putting the restrictions on there is to prevent like a district from telling Patrick, we're not going to give you any money to buy medical supplies because you have to use your state fund to buy medical supplies. That wasn't the intent. It's like you need to take care of your service, but here's something extra, right, in case you do need, one of the things on there is, right, emergency repairs, or right now that you have funds, we can replace your turnout equipment, or now that you have funds, we can do something else. Normally like I said, normally we get like $8,000. So we just kind of bank it, and I'd have to go back and look at some of the things. We bought training aids with them, and some of the money was, right, we already spent $17,000. We've already bought a couple of brand new airway mannequins that we only have $1,500 in our training equipment line item. That buys one thing. So, in an effort to keep our costs down, we've been eyeing it's a very realistic airway management head. It's phenomenal. It's also a $6,000 airway head. So UW's got 3 of them. That's great, right? To me, it's great that UW has that. I buy the $800 airway head for us to practice on. But now that I got $162,000, we bought a $6,000 airway head. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of, that's the spirit I take the approach on. Of we can get some really good training aids and some good equipment and stuff that we couldn't get before, because I feel like there's different priorities in our budget to be responsible citizens. Where you can hit the button. Yeah.
I have a question. So if you're looking at purchasing a fund or applying for a grant from EPIC for replacing the e-bikes, could some of this money be used if we don't get enough funding for the e-bikes?
I believe so.
Okay.
There's a link there if you have questions, because it doesn't specifically say you can buy e-bikes, but it does say you can buy emergency vehicles for it. Yeah, so one of the discussions, and I was going to put this release for discussion for next month, but one of the things we've been talking about amongst, right, our staff is our oldest response car is our 2010 SUV. So it's upwards of 15 years old, right? It's in our fleet replacement process for 20 years. I I don't say what challenge. It's still very functional. We still use it frequently, but when we also have our rehab trailer that we take out and support our fire events on, of which we had one here in Fitchburg about 2 weeks ago, and then that went out and helped Cross Plains about a month before that. Right, repurposed trailer we got for free. Most of the stuff we had in it we got for free. We just repurposed it and put it all in one spot. I would say only about a third of the people, the paramedics at Fitch-Rona, are comfortable driving a trailer. So that trailer, not that it goes out often, but there's times where it doesn't go out because there's people not comfortable buying a trailer. With that as well, we've been teaching a lot more CPR classes, first aid classes. So loading up 16 CPR mannequins, a couple of stop the bleed kits, and all the totes that go with it. We don't have a vehicle that all that fits in. So when we go to those classes, that stuff all ends up in the back of my pickup truck that we go drive around with, which is fine, right? But so one of the things that we've talked about is actually replacing car 15 with a bigger truck that we could still use as a first response vehicle, but we could actually get rid of our rehab trailer. We could put half of that truck as our rehab stuff. We could move stuff out of there, drive around as a CPR thing. But it also comes at about 3 times the cost of an SUV. So, that's the fleet replacement. Big picture, that money would end up, CIP is completely municipal funded. So do we really, right, what is the investment on, right? We currently, I think, have $90,000 budgeted for an SUV. It's about $190,000 for that truck. To me, this is an opportunity to not place that additional burden on the taxpayers. Big picture, right? I understand the money's coming from somewhere, right? The state gave us the money. Somebody gave the state that money. But that would be something we could not have to put locally in our tax base. And this is something we could do that. So that would be an example of at least one of my thoughts to provide you that direction, or ask for your permission to proceed with something like that versus, the other options. Say we ambulances are $330,000 and another $100,000 to put in them. We'd really like to just start banking $100,000. And like FAT funding, right, that normally was $10,000, $9,000 every year, and this was $172 for us this year. It's not guaranteed that next year that doesn't go back to $10,000. So it's money I can't count on that we're going to get that dollar every year. For the foreseeable future, from talking with our lobbyists, that's the case. But that could be something, you could say we want $100,000 of every year set aside to offset the purchase of the next ambulance. So that's an option as well. Right, a great position to be in, to be able to kind of put this money aside and earmark it for some stuff. It was a really long answer to the question I think you had. But so would like to kind of talk about that next month and whether we put it into a resolution or just kind of as unofficial guidance, or to take that back to the finance. I did share this when we've done as much as we're going to talk about CIP and we're going to approve CIP this month. It's usually always I have to have it into the municipalities before we meet. So I did bring that up with our CIP. My presentation with the mayor, city administrator here in Fitchburg to let them know that this is potentially an option for us in the future. Does that answer kind of your question?
We'll move on to update CIP discussions.
Thank you. What I don't really know. I guess I do know. They met again. The 3 municipalities met again actually this morning. My understanding, and I met with City Administrator Chad Brecklin yesterday. I actually have a copy of the proposed IGA. It's currently sitting or has just gone through the 3 municipalities' attorneys to kind of beat it up about the legalese stuff that's in there. My understanding is that, again, that got reviewed this morning. The plan is either the end of this month or the beginning of June at the council or board meetings. that new intergovernmental agreement will actually come to your municipal bodies, because ultimately it's not the commission that approves it, it's the municipalities that sign off on it. So you should see that the municipal, when it officially gets released to the municipalities, I will make sure I share it with the citizen reps as well so that you see what that looks like. The goal is to have that reviewed and approved at the 3 municipalities by the end of June, no later than the first meeting in July for those that meet there, because the first budget deadline for us is usually in the middle of July or beginning of July for the city of Fitchburg, and then city of Verona and town of Verona usually are shortly about a month to 6 weeks after that. But it doesn't matter because equalized value doesn't come out till August 1st. So though the budget needs to be done and presented and submitted, August 1st is an equalized value, so you won't know what the municipalities will owe until August 1st. And that is one of the things that is addressed in the new intergovernmental agreement is the financing structure. That my understanding of, well, not my understanding, I saw it. It will be, as opposed to right now when it's based 100% off of equalized value, it'll be based off of a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 3-year average of equalized value, call volume, and per capita. So that will determine then the funding model, so that by August 1st, to take effective January 2026, the IGA should be approved within the next 2 months. It does also affect the governance structure. Last I saw, it changes the governance structure because it'll change the finance structure, so it'll change the governance structure accordingly to, I think, 4 from Fitchburg, 2 from the city of Verona, and 1 from the town of Verona, kind of reflecting the proportional, what they anticipate coming from the funding sources. All that to take effective January 1st of 2026. Some other language in there about dissolving the district, some other kind of housekeeping stuff. But I will make sure that's the timeline. It should be approved in the next 2 months. I will make sure that that gets distributed to this body once kind of I am told that it's okay to do that. Any questions from me?
Is that instead of, there was discussion about breaking up the district into Fitchburg and then Verona separate districts. Is this take care of that or not really? Yeah. Is Fitchburg still thinking of having its own district?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've raised that question over the years, every few years.
Right.
The new chief they hired, he's got a paramedic background coming from a district that had paramedics, and with this intergovernmental agreement, it's my understanding they're going to make it easier to disband if they want to. And an easier cash out.
Okay. If they want to, why don't they just do that instead of having a new agreement?
Well, under the current intergovernmental agreement, they don't get that money right away. They don't get the equipment. So they've got to do a new intergovernmental agreement that makes it sweeter for them to do it without having to go through the current process.
Okay. So they're just delaying it.
My answer is I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Like JR had said, they did adjust the language to dissolve the district to make it a little bit easier than the kind of the convoluted way of dissolving the district. They did change it from previously it was a 1-year notice if one person wanted to leave the district. They changed that to a 2-year notice if somebody wants to leave the district. And then they essentially came out with a formula of, spent a lot of time on figuring out how that would work. So it's taking into effect into 2026. I've straight up and said on January 1st of 2026, am I going to expect a letter that says in 2 years from now we're pulling out of the district, and nobody has said yes. I do know that the city of Fitchburg is still, I don't know if it's as part of the intergovernmental agreement or along with after the intergovernmental agreement, is still planning on presenting to the council I want to say a proposal, but similar to what they did about a year ago of gauging interest, I believe is what I was told, gauging interest of the council in pursuing becoming a city-based department. It's entirely possible the council will say not interested, and then my understanding is it'll be dead for 5 years, 4 years, 2 years. My impression from that Verona is not interested in pursuing that or doing anything additional with that. I know Fitchburg is planning on gauging the interest of their council to see what that looks like, kind of knowing that they got 2 years to do it. So the answer is no.
Yeah, okay.
Basically setting it up where they can control things just with their sheer numbers.
Yeah, they'll have 4 commissioners and 3 from
the others.
The other 2, yeah.
They will, but it is written in there that any budgets do have to pass a 5 to 7.
Oh.
So Fitchburg won't be able. That was recognized in there that they have the not super majority, but they have the majority. So day-to-day stuff will just be a majority, but any financial transactions does have to be 5, so that it can't be railroaded. If you want to see a copy of it, I reach out to your city administrator or town person. I believe Sarah does have a copy of it as well, if she can give you the super secret copy before it makes its way to the board. But you should see it in about 4 weeks.
Any questions on that topic? Moving on to review and approval of accounts payable checks authorized by Chief Anderson. They're provided in the pre-read. Any questions about the accounts payable checks? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept, approve?
I make a motion to accept and approve.
Sorry about that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Moving on, Resolution 2025-1, approval of GASB 54. All right.
Nope.
Not. Want to go get a drink of water?
Yeah, I will. I'll talk about GASB quick, and then I'll go get a drink. Now that we have our.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I figured I could make it an hour, and we went over. Just a reminder for GASB, some of this is the first time people are seeing this. It's an accounting thing. Now that we have the audit done, there are, let me pull it up. It's an accounting thing. The only thing you'll see that'll change every month that we will do this now through the end of the year is the number down here. Essentially, it says that the commission says that every month there's funds that are assigned. It's the non-spendable inventory and the prepaid expenses. Those 2 numbers are not going to change. We just take those off of the audit. The sick leave liability, which is the post-retirement health care, you're just going to see that's the WISC account. So you're just going to see that number go up or down as things change. And then the contract negotiations, it is a contract negotiation years we're going to talk about. So if we expend anything out of there, you'll see that go down. But that's all this is saying is that you, accounting wise, say that there's funds that are dedicated to expending other things. You just got to approve that. That's it.
Any questions on that topic? Patrick?
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve the resolution 2025-01. I did note that there is a decimal where there probably should be a comma under the non-spendable for prepaid expenses. I think it's pretty clear what the intent is, but just when you all have the official signed copy, you'll probably want to change that to a comma, $50,836.
Got it. All right.
I would second with that change.
So we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the motion passes. I can take the next one, and you can take a break if you want. Yeah, don't die. Okay, so committee officer assignments, historically, they happen as people move on and off the commission one at a time, maybe one a year, and so we just fill them as they become available. And so it's been informal. This time, this year, we have significant change on the board, on the commission, excuse me. So the thinking is this, that there's two elected positions elected by the commission. So it's the chair and secretary, which is Sue. And then the others are appointed. And so we can do this fairly quickly. You know, the idea is that when we get to committees, subcommittees, that we should try to have at least each municipality represented on each committee. So when I get to that portion of the conversation, if what we'll do is say, first off, is anybody on a committee that they'd like to switch? Because if you're a commission member, you're going to be on either personnel or finance. So if you're currently on one of those, and you're like, that's been a good run. We can do that first and then see what's left. Okay, so for chair,
Derek.
Yes. Yep.
Can I even take a step back? Do I have an option of choosing secretary or not?
Yes.
Or can I get more information on it? Okay.
Yes. So we'll do chair first. So chair is currently me. I've been in this situation, I've been in this role for probably almost 2 years, maybe, almost. And so I'm happy to serve another year, which would be, we'll try to do this on an April cadence, but I'm also happy to enter, so I'm going to nominate myself. I'll continue to do it. You can nominate yourself or somebody else can nominate you, but it's open. I mean, I'd be happy to let somebody have the fun. Is there any other nominations for chair?
Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah.
We have 9 members right now, and when the new IGA takes effect, we'll end up having 7 members, mostly Fitchburg people. So should we be careful? I think you're from Fitchburg, right? I'm
Verona.
Or Verona.
City of.
Will we have to redo this again once the IGA takes effect? If there are because 2 people are going to be off the commission.
And when would that take effect, potentially? January 1st. So, okay.
I guess we can just put people in positions now and then change it in January if we need to. All right.
That would be my suggestion.
The 2 positions, the chair and secretary did stay in the new IGA. I apologize for stepping out. I'm sure you talked about the job descriptions we sent out in the IGA. The chair manages the commission. I just do also want to point out before anybody, nobody told me that, the potential for grievances and disciplinary action. So any disciplinary issues, grievances that happen at the staff level come to me first to manage any grievance. Right, so I work through the grievance, pass it down. If that grievance does need to get appealed, it actually does come to the commission as the next level in the process. The chair just chairs that. Essentially, you're still just chairing the commission. You're just helping through the grievance process. You're not out there alone, right? We call the labor attorney, and they help guide you through that process. The other part of that would be any disciplinary actions Same thing, any disciplinary actions that happen at the staff level are mine to manage. If there's any appeal to that disciplinary action process, that comes to the board for review as well. If there's any disciplinary action or a grievance against me as the chief, then that actually comes directly to the board. Clearly, right, I'm not going to manage my own actions, but just wanted to make sure. So the chair is actually the one who that complaint would go to, and then with the help of the board and labor attorney, they would be the ones that would actually have to manage any disciplinary actions or complaints against me. So just wanted to make sure that that was aware out there. Right, I'm hoping you don't ever have to deal with that, but yeah. I don't want that to be a surprise in case that ever pops up. If there's a complaint against the chief, that actually does come to the chair.
So what's in front of us now is chair. I'm nominating myself. Happy to do it through January or April, whatever this. But is there any other? Are there any nominations for chair? So we'll just move on. We'll approve the slate of officers. We'll move on to secretary.
Yeah, the language in the IGA is not even. It doesn't even say elected. It just says the commission shall have. And
the commission chooses.
And the commission chooses. So there doesn't even have to be to me, doesn't even have to be a first, a second, a vote. Just say, yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Is there a chance of talking them into keeping 9 and just doing like 4 Fitchburg, 3 Verona, and 2 town of Verona? I worry about getting quorum in the future. And then does the one person from the town got to sit on both finance and personnel? Or, I mean, I think there's potential issues with less than 9.
I'm going to have you reach out to Chad Brecklin with those thoughts. I could share that with him as well. I know that was, they were there was lots of discussion about the structure.
Yeah, they still have the majority, but I still think we could use 9, and for the sake of the various committees, town of Verona could have one person on each.
I like that idea.
But, yeah.
So, Secretary Sue, you have a couple questions about it, about the role?
Well, that position's also open. I mean, I did not nominate myself. I'm doing some publishing right now and doing some webinars for working with WNA and Wishroom, some risk management groups, and the Wisconsin Nursing Association. If someone else wants it, that's fine. Otherwise, I can look at the job description. I didn't have really enough time to read through it all.
My thoughts are you probably didn't even know you were the secretary. Exactly.
I had no clue.
Surprise.
Yeah. Through the IGA, it's one of the positions that is largely antiquated. If you look at the job, it shall take minutes and post meetings and do all the stuff that Michelle and I and Devin do. Because the last part of the job description for the secretary position is these positions can be delegated to full-time staff.
How come, so when was that supposed to have started that I didn't know until the email that just come out?
I think when you first, I think
I can take notes.
No.
And you don't have, like I said, you don't, all the stuff that's in there is already done by somebody else. One of my recommendations was to take it out of the intergovernmental agreement. I'm like, this is a very symbolic position that doesn't do secretary stuff anymore and hasn't since 1999 when we were a volunteer agency. But it's still in there. And I really think just because at the end of the day, it's a government body that, I mean, I don't know how many other committees people serve on that actually has a secretary. But
we do. in both of my
Okay, and that's
professional organizations. That's probably why it scared me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the job is the same. Michelle and I and Devin and Jeff do all of those jobs. It's pretty much in name.
Happy to assist in any way.
Okay.
So are there other nominations for secretary? Seeing none, looks like Sue and I keep our
Can
jobs.
stay with it then.
We didn't get fired. This is awesome. So at the end, yeah, exactly. So at this agenda, well, at the end of this agenda item, we'll just approve the slate. So next up is Finance Committee, which is currently Dave Lonsdorf and Stephen Fusco. So we have Town of Rona, City of Rona. Sure, it'd be nice to have somebody from Fitchburg on Finance Committee. First off, well, do both of you guys staying on the committee? You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You okay with it? Yeah. Okay. So do we have ideally somebody from Fitchburg appointed or elected official would like to join Finance Committee?
Previously, it was Connie, which would be replaced by Jake, and it was Kate, who would be replaced by Patrick. So if you desire to follow in the footsteps of your predecessors, or if you don't,
I'm comfortable in either committee.
And I'm not recalling if are you the city representative, Mr. Chair, for personnel? The city, you're a member of the personnel committee currently?
Currently, but yes, but we on that topic, I was going to ask to not be, I was going to pick one, so since I'm chair of overall, I was going to not be on personnel committee, right? That's okay,
I think
no?
he's asking, are you okay being on the committee, just not chairing the committee? Also the chair of that committee.
Sure. I'd be happy, yes, I'd be happy to be on the committee. Sorry, I didn't understand your question. I'd be on the committee. I prefer not to chair that committee.
Of personnel, yes.
The personnel. Was that the question?
And finance. That would split, yes.
Then I guess I'm not expressing a preference, kind of similar. So, as long as we get representatives, and I think we wanted all the commission members to serve on a committee.
Yes. So, and there's somebody who's not here tonight, right?
Nicole. Yes.
And she is city, what?
she would be, she historically would have been Jim, who would be personnel.
Okay, she's Fitchburg.
Correct.
Yes.
The Fitchburg Alter.
So what are we agreeing to? So who's on finance then? Dave, Stephen, Jake, and Patrick. Okay. And that leaves personnel, James, Sue, Deb, and Nicole. And what am I doing on personnel? What do we want me to do?
You would also be on personnel, so that would be great for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll
You're
stay.
just not the chair.
I just
But
won't
you're
chair
still
there. So
Or you can if you want.
But personnel committee can pick their own chair, right?
Yes.
It just won't be me. Right? Yeah, okay. And so, and both of these committees for the new folks they meet 2 times a year, maybe 3, and it's for a reason. Like there'll be, something's come up, right, that we don't have any. All right? Okay. Did you capture that?
It's all on video.
Oh,
Michelle's
perfect.
gonna write it down, so
Lucky for
Sue
you.
doesn't even have to take notes.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I don't think we need to do anything more formal than that.
Nope.
So discussion and possible action on updates to signature authority for district finances.
So historically, we, as Derek mentioned, so our policy says any check less than $5,000 with the exception of the 4 that are listed in policy that do not need one. Any check over $5,000 needs a second signature on it. And that signature authority rests at Oak Bank. So we currently have JR and Dave Lonsdorf are our current signatures authorities. Historically, it has been 3 people, 1 from each municipality.
it used to be Kate Cronin for the city of Verona. And then when Kate left, we got Patrick on board. Before we got the process completed, he got replaced with Brent, who then we knew wasn't going to stay, and now Patrick is back. So the suggestion would be that we actually get an additional signature authority from the city of Verona on our signature card at the at Oak Bank. So that would be my discussion. I have had some offline discussions with Patrick, and he would, I believe, would be open to the idea of you all allowing him the blessing to come in and sign checks. When
Sounds like a great
people
idea.
not bear hunting or burning down the weeds at that
Bless away.
trail. But it's got to be an official vote so that we can send the minutes off to Oak Bank and
So-
get his signature.
And a motion to nominate Patrick to take on signature authority for the District of Finance is what we
Sounds
need.
great. Yep.
May I have a motion?
I move to nominate Patrick to be an extra signatory.
Is there a second?
Second.
And second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Yay. All right, next, discussion, possible action on notice of intent to bargain from Local 311.
So I sent that out in the packet as well. We are in a negotiation year. The current collective bargaining agreement goes through December of this year, which means we need to start contract negotiations. The union was on top of it this year and did send us the official notice for the intent to bargain, which I sent to you. So a couple things we need tonight then is one, to officially accept the intent to bargain with them. And then after that, I have talked with the two city administrators. I've not talked with Sarah. I will connect with her about kind of, was a very impromptu meeting about kind of the current contract. What I'm asking for you is, or I guess a reminder that, so 311 is who represents our rank and file staff. So the only people not represented by the union are the chief. So myself, Devin, Jeff, and Michelle. Everybody else is represented by the union. So the union will create a contract, and that contract is actually with the district. So that is with this board. It's not with the municipalities. What I would ask from you is within the next 2 weeks, at least by, I would hope the next 2 weeks, and I will follow up with you, however, as well in the next 2 weeks, to go back to your municipalities and talk with them. It does not have to be you that sits on that board. It just should be somebody from your municipality. Last time we went round, Shannon was the city council member for Fitchburg that was on our board, but Fitchburg sent Alder Udall to do the contract negotiation because he had just actually done the negotiation with police and fire. So again, it doesn't have to be the board. At the end of the day, this board is the one that does sign the contract, but it doesn't have to be you if you don't want to be that person. So if over the next 2 weeks you can please touch base with, my guess would be your city administrator or town of Sarah, and find out who you would like to be on that negotiating committee for the district. And then I will work on getting all of us into one room because I don't serve on the negotiation committee as a member of the negotiating committee. I'm there as kind of in a consulting role as it comes to things if benefits and paid time off and things, so that I'm there to answer questions about the operational impact of what the district is proposing and what the collective bargaining unit is proposing. It can be as little or as many people as you want, keeping in mind that the more people that are on there, the more people we got to try to find to sit down at the same table at the same date and same time. I think we had 5. Was it 5 last time? I think it was you, Randy, Kate, Adam. No, it wasn't. Randy. And Adam.
I wish I could, but
Okay. Yeah. It was the sitting board members from the councils, and Adam is the city administrator from Verona, and then our labor attorney and myself. So that's who was on there last time. Again, doesn't have to be you. Should be at least whoever your members want. Questions for me on that position or that ask?
So you need to know within 2 weeks who that person is? Is it?
It would be nice, because then I can start the process of at least trying to get a first meeting done in June. Ideally, it's a wish. Ideally, it would be nice to have this contract done by the end of July so that we know how to plan for, I know.
The budget, yeah.
I know. It was a wish. Because as of right now, when we prepare a 2026 budget, it's going to be a best guess, because we won't know what the ultimate contract increases will be. So
wouldn't the person normally be appointed by the town chair or the mayor?
Ultimately, it's you.
Or one of us could nominate ourselves, essentially.
You could.
Do it. Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
I guess. And if you want to go back and ask Mark and Sarah, like, this is what we're doing. Are you okay? I sit on it, and they're like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I'm looking for, is that they know this is happening and that they know you're representing them.
One of us is doing that, right?
And yeah, when October rolls around, they're like, what do you mean you did contract negotiations? Kind of like, nah, that's happening. Yeah. So we just need the formal acceptance of the intent to negotiate.
One question on process then, like, who is going to the city of Fitchburg and saying, who's assigned this? Like,
I will reach out. I have already talked with Chad Brecklin.
Okay.
But I will make sure he can. My understanding from him is he has already offered up.
okay. So you start the conversation with City of Verona, City of Fitchburg, right?
I can.
And say, we need, well, I guess.
They're aware that this would be my ask of you. I knew Nicole wasn't going to be here tonight, so I know that was with the understanding that we were entering contract negotiations. I'm pretty sure that's why she was picked as the position to be the representative for us. If one or both of you wants to be from the town, I'll reach out again. Right. I believe it was only about 4, maybe 5 meetings 3 years ago. I'm not going to guarantee you they didn't get a little rough towards the end. But it's about, you're right, it's a lot of Google calendars about when can people get together. We try to do them afternoons, evenings, not 2 evenings. Most of them tended to be later afternoons. We can do them via Zoom, right? They're not posted meetings. They're work groups, right? We meet once kind of to come up with a plan, and then from there, right? I'll say we'll meet once, everybody leaves happy and signs a contract, and yeah, that's not going to happen, but maybe 2 or 3 more times depending on how many times we meet after that. So it's probably about 4 or 5 meetings over the next 3 to 4 months. I'm pretty flexible with those. Everybody just stares down.
Everybody's like, good.
Once every 3 years, it's like a papal conclave.
So tonight, what we're doing is we're accepting the note. Like you're acknowledging it that yes, we accept this note. Okay. So I need a motion to accept the notice of intent to bargain from Local 311, please.
I'll make the motion to accept the notice to bargain with Local 311 concerning contract negotiations for the next contract.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Presentation of the 2025 Capital Improvement Project Budget.
All right. I kept everybody here way past your bedtime on this meeting night, so I'll make this pretty quick. For those people who are brand new to the commission, this is something you haven't seen before. So it did get mailed out. If you have more questions about it, please let me know. But essentially, this is how we have always done things. So the only CIP project that I ever submit to the 3 municipalities is for a fleet replacement policy. I alluded to it a little bit earlier for anyone who's newer. So with the addition of our ambulance, the ambulances we purchased in February, we now have a fleet of 6. So we have 6 ambulances. We purchase a new ambulance every 2 years, and then we keep it for 12. So every 2 years we purchase a new ambulance. It lives as a frontline ambulance for anywhere between 6 to hopefully 8 years when we have some staffing here in the fairly near future. Moves into that reserve status for the remaining 4 to 6 years. It gets replaced at year 12. In addition to that, we replace most of the major durable items inside of it. They're kind of listed here as well. The cot that's inside it, the auto loading system, the cardiac monitor, the radios, and I think it's the vent. Those 5 things alone are about $90,000. So what we do is essentially we have replace the cost of an ambulance, plus tack on about another $100,000 for the most of the stuff that's inside of it. And then that's how we move forward, as opposed to itemizing that and putting together a whole bunch of CIP requests. Like most things have a good solid 12-year lifespan on them. Got a little hiccup in it in the last couple of years, but we should be back on track. So what you see there is what we tried to do, started off with Fitchburg, I think about 6 years ago. The other 2 municipalities have adopted it. Seems to work really well. Because we purchase a new ambulance every 2 years, it created these spikes in CIP, as opposed to a big expenditure every 2 years. So by creating a fleet maintenance program, we took what we normally would have spent every 2 years and divided it over every year. So what you see there is the cost of an ambulance every 2 years up by somewhere between 3 to 5%, divided in half, and increasing that every year. That's why you see that number there. So an ambulance, right, in 2025 was 400 and whatever that. And I take it back, it's not just the ambulance. That number also includes those response vehicles that I talked about with a 20-year replacement. The number just didn't get separated out. So they're both listed in there. There's another great spreadsheet I can share with you if you're interested that, right, Misty and her magic did all of this. So that is the ultimate cost for that CIP every year, broken down into the current, right? That will change starting next year based on that intergovernmental agreement. That is broken down, but it's one, right, not based on any run income. That is all municipal based on equalized value. So that number you see there is what is submitted to, so $131,450,000 is what will be submitted to Fitchburg for our CIP request for 2026. Same thing down here for the city of Verona, it'd be $97,000 and $9,000 to the town for 2026. That will be that number there. It just gets projected out 10 years.
If the IGA is approved, the new IGA is approved, is it effect January 2020? Then you'd come back and that potentially make some revisions to the percentages.
Yes, this actually did come up at my CIP presentation up in Fitchburg. Right now, they're planning on moving forward with this number. On the plus side of things, because it is a fleet maintenance, it's a fleet replacement program. It's kind of like I want to call it like a savings account, but it's kind of like a savings account, right? There's a whole bank account right in the sky for Fitch-Rona EMS and the replacement. So if this goes up, when this goes up or down for 2026, essentially it's going to get absorbed. Right, the municipality can say, all right, now we will specifically set that dollar aside, or it just kind of gets absorbed into the 2027, right? However the municipality chooses to do it, they'll get that number, whether they want to change it in theirs or not, because most CIPs with the 3 municipalities will be approved before August 1st. So I don't know that it'll take that. I will present this now because those are the numbers I have for 2026. The municipality may adjust them.
So that was presentation. So any questions?
I have a question. So you recently got 2 new ambulances in the same year, does that affect how you anticipate this? Is there a chance we could reduce a little bit of cost maybe 1 year, or how does that work?
My goal is to be retired by the time that issue comes up. So it will sort of. It will. The challenge is because we got 2 in 2025. One of those was supposed to be in 2023. So in 2023, one of those will be replaced probably like 2 years early. So in 2033, as opposed to being at the 12 years, historically we've replaced them at the 10-year mark when we had a fleet of 5. I still think it remains to be seen that we're not going to run into some problems stretching that out to 12 because we were forced to stretch it out to 13 with this last purchase. And I feel anecdotally we spent a lot more in maintenance in the last couple of years just because of that aging fleet and that rising cost. In theory, right now that I have more trucks, I can spread that maintenance and mileage out a little bit more through the fleet. So the answer would be no. That would not be my intent. One of them would end up getting replaced at the 10 years it normally would, and the other one will be replaced at its 12.
And then a follow-up question with that. So when you do retire them, do they go to auction? Is that money put back into the CIP budget, or where does that money go?
Yes, that is actually built into the fleet. The other fancy spreadsheet that I don't have I could share with you, that cost that you see there is actually built in with a replacement or a resale cost.
So it's the net, basically.
Yes. And the one, it'll trickle down to the one you'll actually see when it gets to you at the town board. You'll actually see that number come out of there. It's been a wild ride. Historically, if I go back essentially pre-COVID, the resale on an ambulance, we got maybe $5,000 for them, $6,000, right? They sometimes go to other services that can't really afford a $400,000 price tag. Most of the time they went to a plumber or they ended up as a deer shack. After COVID, right, when the demand was really high and it was 4 years to get your new ambulance, that one we sent to auction, we got $22,000 for. So I upped the resale on them, and the one we just sold went for $10,000. So they're back down. It's better than the 5, but they are back. It's back down. I mean, granted, it was also a 13-year-old truck with 160,000 miles on it that had a radiator leak. But 2 weeks before it went to auction, it was being used as a frontline truck. So it's back down. So I lowered that number back down out of here, but yes, you will see that resale come out of there.
So for the possible action agenda item, we would make a motion to approve this submission to the municipalities.
Yes, and CIP and operational budget per the IGA have to go through the normal budgeting, the regular budgeting process at the municipality. So because you approve it tonight, thank you. It still has to go through the 2 cities and the township. It has to go through their budgeting CIP process and be approved by your council and board.
So before we move to motion, I want to make sure there's opportunity for questions. Any further questions to the chief?
I promise I will not always be the nitpicky person. The narrative describes a 5% escalation factor, but the formula just has a 3% escalation factor. So I don't think it matters because we're not approving a multi-year CIP. We're just approving the 2025 CIP budget. But either that's just more confusing than I thought it was, or maybe there's just some correction that needs to happen there.
I will go back and double check it. I know there's a little formula thing in the other spreadsheet that I just moved stuff over with. And I know Misty had caught one of those already, which I probably didn't translate into this one. Historically, we have used 3, and that was at the direction of this municipality so that everybody uses the same inflation number. But when we went from our 2021 ambulance and we purchased, all right, I didn't write a check for the ambulances we got in 2025, but we locked in those prices in 2021. We just didn't see them for 3.5 years. So I reached out again back then because last year I put us in the queue for our 2027 ambulance because it's 3 years, right? We don't have to pay until they actually get that chassis delivered, but we have to, if we get in the queue. So I'm like, so what does that cost look like? And said it's closer to 5 to 7% every year is what we're still seeing, is what they're still seeing on vehicle stuff. So we are, for good or for bad, the way everything is now, we are locked in for a 2027 ambulance cost at last year's prices.
Yeah, I think
I will fix that before I submit it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not important for tonight, but just wanted to double check.
Mr. Lonsdorf?
Just because we're looking so far in the future on these purchases, is there any thought that we're going to move to an electric ambulance at some point? And the prices of that are more, isn't it? Quite a bit.
At least double. Last time I asked for a quote, it was $700. When they first came out, so the city of Madison under Chief Davis was looking at them, and they came and demoed one. It was about $500,000. Last time I looked at one, I think they were up to closer to $700,000 without the infrastructure. I brought up to the municipalities, if you want to give me $700,000, I will break the ground and buy an electric ambulance. When we start looking, so the city of Quebec is all electric ambulances. So they're out there, and the company that truly makes, right, the last research I did, the one that makes at least the most reliable electric ambulance is a company out of Canada. To me, we are the perfect agency size-wise, distance-wise for an electric ambulance based on charging, all of that. I would love, right, I've looked at, we have $60,000 in repair costs every year that, right, no, would love to see no more oil changes and fuel. We just spent $7,000 on replacing some fuel injectors on a 10-year-old ambulance. I don't have to pay for that. Right, big picture, long run, probably comes out even after about 10 years. Again, long answer to your, they're out there, but that is also about $700,000 with nothing in it.
All right, and they're not made in the United States, right? So there's tariff issues with.
Well, 2 years ago they told me. 2 years ago I asked, and he said, "We're building a plant in Illinois, and I'll be able to have it to you before you get the ones you have on order." And I have yet to see anything follow up on that. Right. The other challenge would be infrastructure, because they are designed. I always think of it as a big Apple Watch. Right, in your stations, you plug them in, but they're actually designed to have a pad to drive over. So the hospitals in Quebec actually have big charging pads. So they charge when they're in the emergency room. So part of that infrastructure as well. If you'll approve me the money, I'll buy one. They're pretty slick.
You won't know what the maintenance is on them till you get them either.
I said I tried to hop on board. The city of Madison was going to head up to Quebec for a field trip to look at them. And I said, "You let me know. I'm sure Fitch-Rona would love to send me up to Canada as well." And then they didn't go.
Other questions for the chief regarding the 2025 CIP budget?
Just a quick one. What is the age of the current fleet?
So 20, we just sold the 2023, I'm sorry, the 2013. So 15, 17, 19, 21, 24, 24.
And so we have one on order right now?
And one that will be 20, so the one in 27 will put us back on the every other year order. So yes, the one in 2027 will replace the current 20. And the reason we will have, yes, because we sold the 2013 that would have been replaced in 2023, but we added one now. So to keep the 12 years in 2027, we will sell the 2015, which that's the one actually just needed a bunch of oil injectors on it at 150, it's got like 160,000 miles on it. We'll keep her running.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to submit to approve for submittal the 2025 CIP budget with validation, verification of the 3 versus 5% escalation. So you could just say, do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Other business is allowed by law. Are there any?
Just might mention that the other members from town of Verona and Verona, you might want to, if you think my idea of keeping 9 people, you might want to talk to your people about that also and bring it up. And that'd be another person for town of Verona and another one for Verona. So, just a thought.
And for the city of Verona, is that Mayor Diaz, or who's kind of making the decision?
Those meetings have been had between the mayor and the city administrator and Mark Geller and Sarah Gaskell for the town.
Okay.
I will just throw quickly under other business as well that we keep waffling back and forth between the second and third Thursdays. So next month, the third Thursday is Juneteenth, which is actually a city holiday. So next month we will be on the second Thursday of June. Will be our next commission meeting, which I will present a preliminary operational budget for you to look at. I will potentially try to put together a finance subcommittee meeting before then to let you kind of talk about it with half of the group. If we can find a good date, great. If not, we'll just wait until the full meeting because it's about 4 weeks away. But just wanted to make sure that got noted, that it will be the second Thursday, Scott, next month, because the third.
The 12th.
Okay.
So the next meeting is on June 12th. The July meeting will be then July 17. Is that what you're saying?
We keep talking about going to that third Thursday as well. Is that still gonna is that still what's that?
The third Thursday of July would be
The 17th.
17th.
Is that still
Correct.
hot topics at the planning commission at the town?
I don't care as much anymore. That's all right.
I would love to move it back to the third Thursday.
Third
as you
Thursday
see,
is fine,
the second Thursday is really early to try to get financial reports by.
It's bad. Okay.
So if you're really great if you're indifferent, I love it.
Go ahead.
Go back into July. We'll move back to the third Thursday. Scott will sleep well tonight.
Third Thursday. All right, I'll change those appointments.
I will make sure that gets emailed out.
For June.
Yep, June 12th, then we move to third Thursday.
For June, we can't do it in June because it's a holiday.
July 17th. Yeah.
Any other business? Other business?
I kept you way too late.
You owe us ice cream.
I think so.
This is the new record. Jeez. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thanks, everybody.
We are adjourned.